Hi everyone, welcome to Toxic Google. My name is Dana Han-Klein, and today it's my pleasure to welcome award-winning author Wesley Chu.
Hello.
So, Wesley, take it away.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, that's it.
the intro?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. How far we got so far? We got. My name is Wesley Chu. I'm the author best known for the series, the Tao series by Angry Robot Books, starting with the Lives of Tao, the Deaths of Tao, and the Rebirths of Tao. And I had a new book come out just 10 days ago from Tor Macmillan called Time Salvager. So today I'm going to do a quick reading, just 5 minutes a book, and do a quick scene from Lives of Tao and a quick scene from Time Salvager 2. So here we go. In the Lives of Tao, my main character, a guy named Rowan Tan, has been inhabited by an alien. He doesn't know it yet. So in this scene is the first time they actually met. And this scene is actually very near and dear to me because this actually happened to me in real life, minus the alien part. Okay. It was well past 10 p.m. by the time Rowan left the office. Heels dragging, he trudged out of the building toward the parking garage. He continued south on Wabash and crossed the street, hearing the rumblings of the train as it passed nearby. Suddenly, his highly attuned sense of self-preservation began to let him know that it wasn't happy. Something didn't feel right, and he fidgeted as his eyes darted up and down the street. It was deserted except for a homeless guy crossing the intersection toward his side, and there was no one behind him either. This part of the loop was poorly lit and a little rougher than the business district just a few blocks north. Then, the homeless guy changed directions and moved onto an intercept course. Rowan sighed. He had learned to always keep a few dollar bills on him to give to beggars. It was the easiest way to get rid of them. He handed a buck over before the homeless guy even said a word. "Here you go," Rowan said hastily and tried to pass him. "Thanks, boss," homeless guy replied, shifting to his left to block Rowan's path. "Look, man, I'm hungry. $1 ain't gonna buy much. Let me get a few more for a meal." He stepped in really close. Rowan could smell the faint traces of liquor and the stale aroma of unwashed clothing. "Sorry," Rowan mumbled and tried to pass him again. The homeless guy continued to block his path and gave him a hard shove. "I'm just asking for a couple bucks to eat." Not one for confrontation, Rowan turned into a side alley and immediately regretted his decision. Alleys were where bad things happen, and he just did the exact thing the idiot survival guide to the city would tell him not to do. It was a dead end. Rowan turned around and faced the homeless guy, slowly retreating. "All right, how much you need for a meal?" Homeless guy grinned. "Price just went up, boss. You've gone hurt my feelings." Then, he became a mugger as he pulled out a knife. "It's gonna cost you your cash, your train pass, that bag you carrying, oh hell, everything you got." Rowan fought the rising panic climbing up his throat as he stumbled backward. How did he get himself into these situations? "Look," he stammered, barely getting the words out. "Let's talk this over. I can give you my money, but this is my work bag. I need the stuff in it. I'll get in trouble." "You don't think you're in trouble now? This ain't no negotiations, asshole." "Tell him he can have the money, but you are keeping your bag." Rowan looked confused. "What did you say? What's wrong with you, boss? God, you're dumb. Give me your stuff or I stick you." Rowan retreated until his back bumped up against the dumpster and he began to hyperventilate. What kind of a mugger uses a knife? It is almost insulting. Listen carefully. There are some wine bottles at your feet. Pick them up. "Who is this? What's going on?" Rowan cried. "Your feet. Bottles. Pick them up." The mugger advanced. "I'm losing my patience with you, Tubby. You're going to be a fat dead man any minute." Rowan looked at the ground and saw several empty wine bottles. He picked up one in each hand and he brandished them in front of him. "Hold them by the neck. the neck, the skinny part. Rowan hastily switched his grip. "Stay back," he warned. Now, the mugger paid him no attention and continued to advance. He was no further than a few feet away now. Break the bottles and wheel them in front of you. For a split second, Rowan saw an image of a black armored gladiator standing in an arena holding two swords, one held high over his head and the other in front of his chest. Now, he didn't know what was going on or who was talking, but he was so scared right now he did whatever this voice said. He took the two bottles and he smashed them together. Thunk! They didn't break. What the? Rowan looked down and he tried again. Thunk! Thunk! The damn bottles wouldn't break. Oh, for the love of... Rowan gritted his teeth and he tried once more. Thunk! Thunk! They finally shattered into two jagged shards, and he waved them in front of him triumphantly, trying to imitate that already fading image of the gladiator. Good. Say something mean. What? Threaten him. You give me all your money, Rowan yelled. That is not what I meant. The mugger did a double take. What? I'm robbing you. You give me all your money. Not anymore, Rowan cried. I'm robbing you. You can't rob me. That's not how it works. The mugger no longer seemed so sure of himself and retreated a few steps. Now, the two of them stood really far apart, both harmlessly waving their respective weapons. Every time Rowan advanced, the mugger retreated. And every time the mugger moved forward, Rowan scampered backward. They began swearing at each other. "Come on, you fat asshole," the mugger snarled. "You're such a goddamn jerk," Rowan yelled. Attack. Rowan's eyes darted around the alley. Is my brain trying to get me killed? Bullies are cowards. Attack. Nearly a minute into their standoff, after a lot of bravado on both sides, something in Rowan snapped. With a burst of momentary courage and a really high-pitched squeal, he swung the broken bottles over his head and he charged. The mugger no longer seemed so sure of himself and finally fled. Rowan chased them for about 20 feet before the physical exertion wore him out. He stopped and he bent over, panting. Let him go. You did well. Go home. Who is this? Rowan said in between gasps. But by then, the voice was silent. So, thank you. So that was a scene from the Lives of Tao, and it actually happened to me in real life. I think I was like 25 at the time. I was taking bartending class because that's what you do when you're 25, take bartending class. And some guy tried to rob me, and one thing I learned from this experience is that wine bottles are really, really hard to break. I don't know if you ever try to break a wine bottle on purpose. Like, if you knock it off a shelf, it will fucking break. But if you go like this, it takes a lot of effort. And it's funny because another thing I learned is I spent several years learning Chinese straight sword and broadsword. I took martial arts for a long time. And it's one thing to get really good at something when you're like in a nice, safe school. And it's another thing when a guy's got a knife sticking at you and you basically everything goes out the window. So I spent, 5-10 years learning how to use a sword. And by the one time in my life I get to stab somebody, I do one of these. So I don't know what the lesson is actually, but the lesson is if you're gonna stab somebody, make sure you put yourself in a real situation where you actually might be able to. So the next thing I'm gonna read for you is a scene from my new series, Time Salvager. So Time Salvager came out July 7th, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background on it. Time Salvager is about the future. Humanity has colonized the solar system, and the 26th century, and we're running out of resources. So there are these time travelers called Cronmen. They go back in time to what they call dead-end timelines, say a moment before a disaster or an explosion or some kind of tragedy. So these guys go back in time, say right before a ship explodes, and they grab the resources, the technology, the power sources, the relics, all these things, and then they jump out right as the bad thing is about to happen. And the reason why they do this is because the number one rule of time traveling is you don't change the timeline. Because so when the explosion or disaster happens, it covers their tracks and they are good to go. The problem with this job is they experience the last terrible moments of all the victims, and they can't do anything about it. I got this idea. I was reading an article about the South African photojournalist named Kevin Carter, and he was involved in a Sudan famine. He was taking pictures and journaling everything that was going on. He took a very iconic picture of this kid. This is a really sad story. Sorry. About this kid crawling towards an aid station, and there was this vulture hopping behind him, And at the time, Kevin took the picture and was like, "It's my job to journal everything, not to get involved." So he left the kid there, and he won a Pulitzer for that picture, and then he committed suicide 11 months later. A few weeks later, I was on Chantix trying to quit smoking, and great drug, by the way. I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry, is that a licensing thing now? Chantix is awesome. No, but so Chantix gives you very lucid dreams. So at one point, I had a dream that I was on the Titanic, of the time traveler on the Titanic, going back to steal the Hope Diamond, because when you go to Titanic, that's what you do, you steal the Hope Diamond. And during the time I was there, I befriended all the crew and the passengers, and I knew they were all gonna die, but it wasn't my job to get involved. So right as the ship was sinking, I woke up. And I'm not sure if I actually ever got that Hope Diamond, but I remember when I woke up, I was like, this is the best use of time travel, because everybody talks about, like, if you go back in time, do you kill Hitler, or do you go all like Biff, become like Biff Tannen? Does anybody know who Biff Tannen is? All right, so I just dated all of you guys. I know how old you are now. But do you either kill Hitler, or do you use this gray sports almanac and win a lot of money? And my problem with time travel, and a lot of time travel stories, is they always change history. We all know about the butterfly effect, but my thing is, let's say somebody does invent time traveling and he kills Hitler. What happens next? For all we know, the Third Reich could have happened anyway. And instead of instead of Hitler, who's all obsessed about St. Petersburg, the new Third Reich Führer or whatever, looks at the map and goes, maybe he read some Napoleonic history and goes, that's a lot of land to cover, and maybe we shouldn't go east. Let's go west instead. So the number one rule of time traveling is don't mess with the future. So the scene I'm going to read for you is from the Time Traveler series. I will give you no context. By the way, I only have one voice, so if all my guys sound the same, I'm sorry. Are you sure you weren't sent by the boys from the society to give old Titus one last tug of his beard before he goes off on his final light burst? Titus 2.3, Grand Juror of Darkside Prime, having lived 155 Venusian years, was the oldest man on all of Venus. He was the foremost inventor of his generation, and once considered the second brightest mind of the century. Once, meaning he had just recently been bumped down to third by some upstart 19-year-old girl named Priestley. That was fine with Titus. He was tired of being the smartest guy at every party anyway. The stranger blocking his path to his honorary light burst craned his head and looked up at the needle-shaped rocket, scheduled to take off in the next 10 minutes. I assure you, Grand Juror, as great of an honor as it is being granted the light burst voyage, flying into the sun is probably one of the worst ways a person could die. As soon as your light shields, I know what happens, boy! I designed this flaming contraption. It's tradition here to send us old shits off this way. Blaze of fucking glory. Titus huffed. I've taken 4 life extensions already. That's the record, by the way. Most granted any Venusian, and frankly, my damn back's too tired to hold me up anymore. I've done more in 3 lifetimes I've done more than anyone in 3 lifetimes. And if those jerk-offs want to push me out now, well, I don't have the energy to argue. The 2 men stood at an impasse on the platform, even as the light burst thrusters smoked and began its pre-ignition sequence. Titus really should be buckled in by now. 5 kilometers away, watching safely in their observation tower, his family, friends, and peers were all waiting for him to commit suicide. Your mind is as sharp as ever, Titus, said the stranger. Address me as Grand Juror, boy. I've earned this title. I assure you, Grand Juror, if you do not believe me, then by all means, I am here to offer you an opportunity to continue your work. If you do not believe me, then by all means, step into the light burst and be on your way. I won't stop you. However, my scans have confirmed that you are still healthy and may live for several more years. If you wish to put those to good use, then you should come with me. Titus hesitated. He had already said goodbye to his husband and his 2 wives, and he had held court for his grandchildren and played with his great-grandchildren one last time, making sure they all realized that he wasn't coming back from this voyage. The boys at the society had thrown him a nice party and even given him a prostitute. Everything felt pretty final. Sometimes, an old guy just had to recognize when to hang it up. Still, the opportunity the stranger presented was interesting. After all, a few more years was nothing to sneeze at. But there was the matter of tradition. Isn't this what he was supposed to do as an elder honored citizen of Venus? What if word got out that he skipped out on his own light burst? It would be a scandal. Excuse me, Grand Juror, but your time is running out. The light burst is scheduled to take off in the next 6 minutes. I need to be away from the blast radius when it takes off. Regardless, you need to be on that ship or with me. Don't rush me, boy, Titus snapped. Do you know who I am? Yes, Grand Juror, you are. I was being rhetorical. This is a big decision to make. I don't like being rushed. Where are we going anyway? A place that needs your skill and intelligence. A place where you can continue to do good. So can I assume you will come? Assume all you want. I'm still thinking. How did you get past security anyway? You know, I designed this entire launch bay. Call it professional curiosity, so in my next life, I can build a better system to keep creepy assholes like you out. This is a private party after all. Your 2 honor guards at the door do not know that I am here. Really? Guards, get your lazy asses in here. The stranger sighed. I really wish you didn't do that. The 2 red honor guards came running into the room, both carrying their battery tridents. Their insect-like armor, more ceremonial than functional, were modeled after a type of old earth beetle that used to be worshipped as a god. The 2 men, however, were elite warriors specifically chosen to honor Titus 2.3's light burst. Stand aside, Grand Juror, one of the guards said, leveling his battery trident at the stranger. For a second, Titus feared that the stranger would use him as a human shield and that he would die at the base of his own light burst ship before even getting the chance to kill himself properly. That would have been the final indignation. To his pleasant surprise, though, the stranger did not stop Titus from waddling off to the side of safety. The honor guard that had spoken aimed his battery trident and fired a lightning arc at the stranger. The stranger tilted his head just a couple of centimeters to his left and let the arc shoot harmlessly past his head. You have really good reflexes, Titus observed, admittedly entertained. The second guard charged in closer and fired his trident as well. Titus's chest puffed up a little bit. He recognized one of his inventions. It was a kinesis spear, one of his latter inventions that could wrap a kinetic field around an object and manipulate it. He watched as the blue field shot out and enveloped the stranger. Then, to his surprise, nothing happened. The field that was supposed to surround the guy just popped like a bubble. You must have a defective spear, Titus commented, his face turning a little red. Then, his mouth dropped when a strange yellow crackle of energy leaped out of the stranger. At first, it looked like the battery trident had malfunctioned and was causing some energy feedback. Then Titus realized that the stranger was surrounded by this nearly translucent field of yellow light. The kinesis spear exploded in the honor guard's hand, and the stranger seemed to have somehow teleport or move really, really fast next to the guard. There was a clumsy exchange of fists, and then the honor guard flew into the air and slammed into the wall on the far side of the silo. The remaining guard fired again. This time, his lightning arc hit the stranger square in the chest, but the blue arc fragmented harmlessly off the stranger's yellow field. A similar yellow surge followed, and an invisible force struck the honor guard, cracking his chest plate in half. The impact slammed the guard into one of the railings. The stranger turned to Titus. "I'm sorry that had to happen, Grandeur. If you do not wish to come with me, I will not force you." Titus, a lifelong pacifist, harumphed. "You young men, always thinking with your dicks and biceps. All right, now you've piqued my curiosity. If I go with you, what's my guarantee what you're offering is true? Would you like a cyanide pill before we leave? If you change your mind, you're free to take the pill and still commit suicide." Titus looked at the light burst as it began its final sequence. 60 seconds before they were both burned to a crisp. It was too late to get away and too late to get into the rocket. It was kind of the story of his life, always taking too long to make decisions. "Oh, fine," he grumbled, "though I think it's too late." In a split second, the stranger grabbed Titus and cradled him close to his body. Just as the rocket ignited, the stranger and Titus launched up the tube as if they had their own invisible rocket strapped to their asses. They shot straight through the launch opening and cleared the planet. A few minutes later, in the black depths of space, Titus and the stranger watched as a spark of light erupted from Venus' surface, leaving a thin yellow trail. They floated for about 20 minutes, watching his coffin disappear into the sun. "Like watching my own damn funeral," Titus grumbled. "Now what? Why are we still floating here? It's making me dizzy, making me want to shit my pants. Where are we going next?" He paused. "How are you doing all this?" The stranger smiled for the first time. "Please stand by. We will need to wait until we are cleared to jump back." "Go figure. You hurry me up and then you make me wait. How rude. What do you mean jump back anyway?" "To the future." Titus wasn't surprised. He had surmised as much when the stranger wielded all those strange powers. "Holy hell, I knew it. Talk about bearing the lead. You know, boy, you should have opened with that line. I'd hop in your sack right away instead of beating around the bush. By the way, do you frumps from the future have the cures for all my maladies?" "Apologies, Grandeur. There isn't a cure for old age." "Fuck!" Titus paused. "Is the future nice at least? Like a utopian paradise?" The stranger shook his head. "I hate to disappoint you." Fucking fuck. I might as well stay in the rocket then. Would you like your cyanide pill now or when we get there? Thank you. So that was my 2 readings. Are there any questions for all you people in the audience?
I think my biggest question to you is, what was the different processes about writing these books? Because like James from Time Salvager seems like this kind of more mild, less. I couldn't imagine him having like that exchange with like a homeless person who's trying to rob him, as opposed to like the Lives of Tao, where.
I wrote the Lives of Tao a long time ago. I wrote it 7 years ago, so I was in a different place back then. Mm-hmm. And it was my second book. First book, you always write your first book, and unless you're super talented, you'll usually trunk that book because you make all the mistakes in that first book. So then I wrote Lives of Tao, and at the time I was going through like a midlife crisis, because everybody in their 20s goes through a midlife crisis. That's right before you play Warcraft. But so I know I was when I was 16, I told my dad that I'm gonna be a writer, Dad. I'm gonna be an English major just like you. And then my dad's an English professor, and at the time he was like, "No, son, your life will suffer." So I did. I became a computer science major. I did the whole corporate thing for a while, and I was always, it's kind of it was never my calling. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the Lives of Tao with that kind of space where because Lives of Tao is kind of a late coming of age, kind of self-improvement kind of story. So it was a very personal story for me. I wrote the book, then I played 3 years of Warcraft, as you do, and then I sold it in 2011. So then Time Salvager is my 4th book, and by then. I'm writing more complex characters. I'm adding a lot more things to it. So they're very different, but I think they both come from the same place.
Did you find yourself like maybe more rigidly sticking to a writing schedule, or was it just kind of like whenever inspiration struck, you'd write?
Before you get your first book deal, you write when you can. You work a job, you go to the gym. Around like 8 to 10, you go and you write at a cafe, or like I used to float. I live in Chicago, and I used to go from like cafe to cafe, like just abusing the hell out of those like bottomless cup of coffee policies. But then like once you go, I went full time last year. Once you go full time, I am contractually obligated to be creative. So inspiration be damned. I mean, inspiration is great. I would love to be inspired every time I write, but that's your job, and sometimes you just gotta muscle through it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's like my new process is. I'm a lot more. I worked corporate for many years, and when you work corporate, you have a lot of metrics you stand by. So even with writing now, everything for me is based on metrics.
So how much research did you do into speaking of Time Salvager, since that's what I read most recently, how much research did you do into the time eras that you had him jump into? Was there a temptation to kind of stick to this fictionalized history of like events that happened past 2015, or were you like, I really want to have him go, Nazi Germany is obviously a kind of a go-to jump. The Titanic you mentioned was an inspiration. Right. Did you do a lot of research on that, or were you just like, he's going back?
Well, I mean, I did some research on what he was after in the Nazi period. I mean, I'll be honest, I just wanted to kill some Nazis, because we all do. But the majority of Time Salvager is actually, he jumps back in time to moments after the present. So I think I have 2 scenes that are, I mean, by timeline-wise, they're realistic enough. But besides that, I barely jump back into the past.
Right. Did you find that just easier in terms of, obviously there's a lot of technology that they needed in the book that hasn't been invented yet.
Here's the thing, is I wanted to show an arc of what's happening to humanity and the planet without actually telling stuff. So the way I showed them was to have them go to different moments, important moments in the future that was the past of their present. Did that make any sense? All right, great. So you should go back there and you kind of get a broad picture of, humanity is doing really well and we're working together, and then shit really bad happens, and then we go to war, and then now we're squabbling over resources, and we already know what happened in our past. Right. So I wanted to basically paint a picture of what's happening in our future, that without actually saying, all right, things are really, really bad, and this is why. I was able to show them by having his jumps.
Right, by having him kind of re-experience these horrible things.
Right.
So if you personally could go back to any era, what would it be?
I mean, oh man, can I bring a Gray's Sports Almanac with me?
Sure. You changed the future, though. I think you're violating your own kind of time laws. But if you want to go full back to the future too, go for it.
Okay, I mean, so the Lives of Tao had a lot of history in it. I mean, a lot of these aliens have been on the planet for a long time. So I did a lot of research between from Genghis Khan to the 30 Years' War, and basically, no matter how bad we think things are right now, it's actually pretty damn good. You go back there, you get the Spanish flu, you get the, we're drinking muddy water, and there's no sewer system. So, I mean, I'm pretty happy with the way things are, and if I could change, I would go and put a lot of money down on the Patriots in 2000, because at the end of the day, it's all about fat stacks.
Sure.
And,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very,
It's clear. Yeah. It's the way the world works.
You either kill Hitler or you make money. We can't kill Hitler, so we might as well make money.
That's very true.
Sorry, I'm like the worst technology inspiration. Anyways, let's go.
Well,
on.
my next question would be, what technology from the future would you hope that's realized in our lifetime, aside from time travel?
I guess I'd like to colonize other planets.
Okay.
That's the one thing is, it's, especially more recently, we're getting we got this awesome footage of Pluto. And did you know Pluto was brown? Yeah, I didn't know. I was like, Pluto was brown. And I'd never think about that. Yeah. And and then recently I've read a lot of, Andy Weir's The Martian, and it's really, we had that thing a few years ago where they were going to colonize Mars. That's a scam, right?
They're working on it, right?
Are they really actually working on it? Anyways, I mean,
it's a slow process.
Is it still going? Is it still going? Okay, I want to sign up for that. But so the thing is, I am all about colonizing something now. Let's show our Earth imperialism and colonize the planet.
So you'd sign up. You'd sign up for
I
that first.
do it.
All right, the one way ticket. Kind of your background more. Do you feel like colonizing is a thing, and I colonizing is a thing. Yes, that's the most self-explanatory sentence ever. I was going to ask about your background and kind of the sense of, you grew up in Taiwan, right?
Yes.
And so, coming here is probably, it's not a colony, but it is a different cultural experience. And how has that kind of played into your, writing and the experiences that led to your books?
I mean, I came in when I was 5. I grew up in Nebraska. Back in Nebraska in the 80s, there was like 5 Asian people in the state. I think 4 of them were in my family. So it's, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. My Mandarin is terrible. I have the I have the listening comprehension of like a 5-year-old. I'm actually hoping my dad never sees this. My dad was the principal of the Sunday Chinese school. I think I flunked it. So I'm very Americanized. There's you obviously you always experience things. When you look like 1 of 5 people in a state, full of white people. But but it's one of the things you've got to learn to adapt. And if anything, because I had to learn to adapt so early in that kind of environment, I have a lot thicker skin about it than I would say most other minorities.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a family that is also immigrants, and there is that kind of sense of like, well, but we're American. But actually, also for me, I think a big thing was like, the development something like Taiwan has seen, and then going back to kind of like the rural days, and then there's this kind of future Earth, and it's just this kind of sad rural, like reverse progression of.
I mean, you've been in Taiwan, right? Have you?
Not in a long time, but it's.
I mean, when I left, it was like, I think it was like 82, 81, 82. All I remember as a kid was like big jungle, and like I think I lost a dog because he jumped in the river and then a bunch of leeches ate him or something like that. I could be actually wrong. I'm probably wrong. I was like 4 years old when it happened. But I went back recently, and it's like really nice.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's just this kind of like seeing this culture build up, and it's everywhere. It's not just like.
Is it everywhere? Because
it's not everywhere, but a lot of places are going
Chicago's train system sucks. So,
have you ever tried to take BART late at night here?
I don't know what that means.
Like, exactly. It's our like L train thing.
Does it suck?
Yeah, at night it does.
All right, that's.
So I'll switch gears again. What are some non-literate influences for this book?
Well, I mean, the main literary influence would probably be like Kevin Carter, the photojournalist. I mean, I read that article and I was like, it kind of blew my mind. At the same time, I'm like, how could you leave a kid there? But at the same time, I was like, I kind of got where he was coming from.
It's a little bit prime directive, like from Star Trek. It's like you can't interfere because.
Oh my God! I don't know why I never thought about that.
That's the first thing I thought of.
I'm the biggest freaking Trekkie, and I didn't think about that. I'm a terrible Trekkie.
It was like prime directive meant like Sanderson's laws, where everything kind of has to have like an equal ramification.
Okay, now you're taking to another geek level. I am not ready for it.
I'm sorry. This is Google.
You guys aren't a bunch of geeks. I always thought like if the tech world was like a high school, okay? Facebook would be like a drama club. All the geeks work at Yahoo. You guys would be the cool kids. You guys would be the jocks, right? That's kind of how I.
Sure, I'll take it. Oh yeah, I don't think many of us were. Yeah, I don't know if any of us were that. Some of us were that growing up, but I think. So what were some of your literary influences then?
When I was a kid, I wrote a short story. I think in like 2nd grade. And my dad read it, and he's an English teacher, so he read it, and obviously it's a stupid kid story. It's actually about the solar system. And he read it, and he was like, son, this doesn't suck. Which it's a very Asian thing
I was
to
going
say.
to say that's the highest Chinese compliment you're going to ever
get.
It's
the highest compliment an Asian parent can give you. And so he actually took me to a bookstore, and he's like, buy whatever you want. I will buy you books. And he basically like steered me toward like Beowulf or like, Othello or some shit like that. So I love the classics. But at the time I was in 2nd grade, so I ran to all the books with all the pretty pictures. And I gotta say, and I don't know how this happened, but I grabbed the Piers Anthony book. Piers Anthony, he wrote. No. That would be his better series. He wrote. I got a Spell for Chameleon, which is
I'm not familiar.
the first of his dance books. Yeah, and that whole series gets really weird as time went on. But I think I got to 18 books.
It's like Wheel of Time.
He's got like 50. He's still alive. He's got like 50 books, right? Yeah, he's got like 48 books or something like that. So he's still going at it. But so I fed on a steady diet of like L. Frank Baum and like Piers Anthony books
Nice.
as a kid.
That's awesome. What to you kind of makes a good sci-fi book? Just say one I wrote.
Yeah, let me know when you find out. I mean, I'm a relationship kind of guy. You know, I mean, the sci-fi is really broad. I hung out with a friend of mine, Ramez Nam, who wrote a great book called Nexus. And you know, for him, he wrote a near future sci-fi about, you know, what happens when, you know, in his book there's OS that you can install into somebody's brain, and that's like, you know, how does that biotech affect the near future, you know? And then you have somebody like, you know, Anne Leckie, who writes about these 1,000-year empires, and everybody there's no gender. So there's gender, but there's no pronouns. Everybody's a she. So she's actually kind of, there's so many things you can do with sci-fi. Personally, I like the whole, you know, I like to say that Time Salvager is a love story, and there is time traveling, but time traveling is not the main focus of the story. You know, I mean, I don't do paradoxes. I don't do the whole, like, you know, Groundhog Day or the Back to the Future thing. It's about time traveling is a tool that I use to bring these people together and to, you know, it's a little bit
right. It's not the crux of the story. It's like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they treat it as a tool. You know, like companies in the future treat it as just as like it's a regular resource to them. No, it definitely read.
And you know, and obviously every resource has rules. I talk a lot about environmentalism in that book.
Yes.
The socialist in me comes out a little bit when I talk about, you know, corporations. So, you know, it's a combination of those things. And I would say time traveling is the least important of all of them.
I mean, it read almost a little bit as like a cautionary tale to me of like where we could be headed, where we want to kind of avoid heading, and like the hopefulness of the people in it trying to like correct the wrongs, you know, like eventually realizing like, oh, let's do something about it instead of just letting this.
People are our ultimate resource.
Exactly.
Kind of thing, yeah.
Well, so what are you reading right now?
I'm reading Annie Weir's The Martian. I just finished Robert Jackson Bennett's City of Blades. That book's not out yet. It's awesome. I just started Armada by Ernest Cline.
Okay.
That just came out. And what was that fourth book that I'm reading? I switched between a lot of books now. So what was my last book? I just finished Uprooted by Naomi Novik.
Oh, we just did a talk with her.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Did it go much better than this one?
This one's going great. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right, okay.
Well, okay, speaking of like The Martian is being made into a movie.
Okay.
Time Salvager is being made into a movie. Hopefully, yes, it's on track to be. Which character from the book would you play if you could be in the film?
I mean, who would I be if I wanted?
If you could be one of the characters.
You know, I've done some stunt work in the past, and I was always like, you know, the guy that gets beat up or killed. So I'd be like SWAT team member number 5, gangbanger number 3. I'd run, I'd shoot, I get shot. So I think I would be like a red shirt.
Okay.
Because,
an exo red shirt, like a.
Because if there was something being made, I would like somebody much better than me to actually play a role, play an important role. I would be a throwaway character.
You made a great comment earlier about like you said being a Phillips head screwdriver.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that?
I mean, I've been asked, like, you know, I'm a full-time writer, so there's actually many avenues that a writer, you know, can do to make a living. You know, they can write novellas, they can write novels, short stories, they can write articles, and I've been asked, or they could ask to do screenplays or, you know, adaptations and everything, and I've been asked that before, and I'm like, well, I am a Phillips screwdriver. I'm a single-purpose machine. You know, I can only do one thing really well. It's okay well, I guess. I can do one thing in life. That's the only thing I want to do. I don't want to do anything else. You know, I've been asked in the past to do a pilot for the Lives of Tao, and I gave it a shot. And I realized that, you know, it's a different medium, different skill set. I am all about, you know, back to my corporate days. I am all about subject matter experts. So instead of me trying to play the different medium and risk, you know, making the product worse, I'd rather, you know, swallow my ego and have somebody else do it. So all I want to do in life is write novels and stab somebody once.
So if you were hosting a dinner and you could invite 3 characters throughout history, who would you invite? They can be literary or real.
You know what? I just want to have drinks with like Hemingway or like all those guys.
That's
fine, because he seems like a cool dude to hang out with. You know, so I'm always reading about like, you know, like I like reading about like eccentric writers, because I never got why they were eccentric until I became a writer, and then I started hanging out with other writers. And I can't tell if it's because writers are naturally eccentric or writing makes somebody eccentric. So I read about all these guys, and I have a bunch of writer friends, and and I can kind of see how their years work. And so I would like to kind of hang out with the really big guys in the past and figure out what makes them tick.
If you could go back in time 10 years and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
You know what? If you go back 15 years, I would tell me to get over myself. Because back in your 20s, as we all are, I was very insecure and kind of a dick. I probably drank too much. So if I go back 15 years, I would probably tell myself to chill out.
Good advice.
And quit my job.
Also, depending on the situation, you're good advice.
Make that move out of Chicago like you were supposed to. Now you can't leave. Sorry, that was a bit too much.
So to go back to your Philip Screwhead moment, what would be some things as a professional writer you would give advice to your first book as a writer? Like, what are some steps that you would avoid at the very beginning if you can go back in time, I guess? What fascinates me about books is the journey of it. So it takes years, it could take months, it could be. I just don't know how you came from your original idea, then to your manuscript, and then once you were done, you're like, what do I do with this now? Like, what would be, what are some of the things you did at the very beginning that now is not something you should do?
Oh man, I mean, there's no right way to write a book. First time I did it, I just sat down and I just didn't outline and I just wrote, and then 15,000 words in, I realized that this is complete garbage and we need to go back and do it over again. And then over time, I've developed a process that's good. That's great for me. I mean, there's no right way to get the book done. But I will say that one common mistake that a lot of beginning writers make is they start querying or they start trying to sell it before it's ready. And whenever you finish your very first book, we all think it's awesome. We're like, hey, I just gave birth and this thing is gonna rock on. But chances are it's not. And the editing process, when you write a book, you made a piece of turd. Now you gotta polish the shit out of it until it shines, And that's a really long process, especially if you're writing your first book. You need to edit it many, many times. You need to get as many eyes as you can on it. And then you need, I would honestly say that if you can, if you can copy edit yourself, great, fantastic. If you can't, get a copy editor because that stuff really matters, especially if you're just starting out. But yeah, there's no real process. You just gotta sit down and write, and you'll find your own natural process.
If you have the polished product, what would be, if you could give advice to a new writer? What would be would you query? Would you try to what would be your next step?
If you want to go the traditional route, which is what I do, I create an agent, and then I got a deal. Actually, that's not true. I lied. So for the way I got published, it's a little bit weirder. In 2011, my first publisher, Angry Robot, had a 1 month open submission. So it's for 1 month, anybody can submit to them. And at the time, 955 people submitted books to them, and then they went through an 8-month weaning out process. It was like Thunderdome publishing, and then at the very end, I think 25 people made it to acquisitions, and 5 people got deals. So I was one of those 5. And by then, I had gotten an agent, and go on to your next your future book deals. If you want, I mean, and it's a very legitimate path to take. Is you can self-publish. Self-publishing is a big thing now. And if you don't want to deal with that aspect, and you're great at marketing and being your own little business, then you can definitely self-publish and and go down that route too.
What's the best typing instrument that you found, or software, whatever?
I use a tool called Scrivener, which is a fantastic novel writing tool. It's one of those. It's an application that you can use that help you kind of organize your entire process. My first couple of books were on Word, and Word's great, but once you have 130,000 words there, and then you got to make a change in something. How are you going to basically debug your novel? And what Scrivener does is it helps you kind of organize everything. You get multiple screens. You have notes. You insert pictures or whatever you need. Whatever it takes to help you kind of project manage your book. So that's the main tool I use. There's another one that helps with timelines called Eon Timeline. It's supposed to be a fantastic tool. I don't know how to use it. Whoever makes Eon Timeline, it's a great app. You need better tutorials.
Do you tend to outline your books in a very detailed way first, or do you just kind of give like story beats and then go in and fill it in, or do you find yourself going back later, or are you just like you have the idea to start and then stick with it?
I'm a pretty high concept guy, so I get an idea first, and then I get the characters, and then I get the world. And what I usually do is I'll write 2-3 chapters just to kind of get the feel of the narrative, get a feel of the characters. And then once I kind of have an idea, once I'm confident that this is a good idea and I can go with it, then I'll step back and I'll write an exhaustive, like 15,000 word outline. And then 90% of the time I will jump the rails about 60% in. So what I'm doing now is I write an exhaustive outline up to about 70%, because 70% is kind of like the tilting point for a novel. Up to the first 70%, you're asking questions. The last 30%, you're answering questions. And that's where a lot of novels get tripped up is, a lot of outlines get tripped up because you're asking questions, but sometimes you're not always connecting everything at that point. So right now, I'll write an exhaustive outline up to 70% of the book. And then once I get there, as I'm writing, I'm always readjusting, adding notes. I don't edit while I draft. I highly recommend not editing while you draft because if you do that, you will be doing that forever. So get that draft done first. But as you're drafting, you leave little notes like a debug sheet. And then once you finish the draft, then you go back into your outline.
Who are some of the people like you turn to or trust when you, like as a second set of eyes, or do you just kind of want to get it all out first and then send it to people? Because I know like artists and writers and anything that's like your creative baby, people are very hesitant to receive feedback on.
I mean, nobody reads my first draft. Nobody reads my third draft. I think by the time I'm in like my fourth draft, my wife will read it. And if she hates it, I will just kill myself. But then I'll have like a small beta group of betas that I rely on. I mean, the thing about betas is you need to trust them. Mm-hmm. It can't be some dude off the street, who wants to read a book, because you don't know if his opinion's any good or not. So I have a very small group of guys that I trust that will give me good feedback. And once I get their input, then I put their notes in, and then it goes to my agent.
Do you tend to send it to people who are also kind of involved in the literary world, or do you also include like just audience, fans or people who like reading?
They're all friends that I've known for a long time.
That you trust, that they tell you the truth about.
I'm too self-conscious to give a draft to another author because then they'll find out that I'm a fraud. And
I don't think that, but I get it's like showing your work to any other person in this world is always a terrifying thing.
Exactly,
be it code or a book or a picture you've taken. So it's a very human thing.
I mean, the whole beta process also is about self-confidence. Right. Is once you get these people that you trust and they go, hey, this book doesn't suck. That's so my dad when I just said that. Then I'm ready to say after a while I'm like, okay, I know this book is a solid piece of work. I can show somebody that I'm not as close with.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, give them a round of applause.